Welcome, everyone, to Catholic Sunday Scriptures in Context. This is a ministry of the Augustinian Order in St. Paul Parish. Today we are focusing on the second Sunday of Lent, February 25th, 26th. Our first reading today comes from the book of Genesis, and the title of the story either is The Binding of Isaac or The Sacrifice of Isaac. Obviously, he was not sacrificed, and when we understand this piece of literature and where the story started from, we need to understand that human sacrifice of children was not unheard of at the time this story takes place. A lot of archaeological digs have discovered these jars of human remains which show that children were killed. And this was especially common among the Canaanites and the Ammonites, who were two peoples that competed with geographical boundaries with the Jewish people. And the real value of this story of Abraham's sacrifice was not in any way diminished by the fact that he did not kill Isaac. His willingness to offer back to the giver, to God, the most precious gift he had received was more valuable than any blood offering. And Abraham was trying to figure out how the promise that God made to him, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars of the sky or the sands on the shore of the sea, could be fulfilled if he killed his son. But he believed in God so much that somehow God's going to make something out of this. And what God came to understand, what Abraham came to understand, is that this was a test of faith, and that Yahweh does not require human sacrifice. Rather, he wants the sacrifice of our hearts. And so here, we see the key lines, and he takes him to the land of Moriah. And in the temple of Jerusalem, the altar of sacrifice there, that is where they believe Abraham sacrificed Isaac, where Mohammed ascended to heaven. And so that's why this spot in Jerusalem where the temple was built is so critical to both Judaism and to Islam. And again, this was a test of faith, and God, said, I know how devoted you are to God, since you do not withhold from me even your own beloved son. And so we see that, this is going to prefigure the death of Jesus, that God loved us so much that he sacrificed his son for us. Our second reading comes from Paul's letter to the Romans. And so Paul is writing this letter in anticipation of visiting the Romans. And he realizes that if he comes to Rome and can bring his ministry there, that he can possibly get to the ends of the empire, such as Spain or other parts. And so he's introducing himself and introducing his theology to the people of Rome. And he said what Paul's issue is, the things that are tearing us apart, the little things, and our disputes between Jews and Gentiles, and whether you should be circumcised or not, and the fear of the Roman persecutions. In light of all that Jesus has done, or that God has done through Jesus, those things are meaningless. If they are focusing on these things, then they are missing the point. They have been in sin, and now they have been set free, and that's what they need to focus on. And because of this, they have received justification. And so the lesson for us, too, is sometimes we tear ourselves apart in the culture wars, and we really need to focus on the things that matter, on solving poverty, ending disease, bringing an end to war, stopping prejudice, and sometimes the moral apathy that accompanies us as Christians. And if God is for us, who can be against us? And how will he not also give us everything else along with him? And that's what we need to do, is to use our beliefs in the love of God to bring about changes in our world. And lastly, we have this famous story of the Transfiguration. And Mark gives us a hint that something wonderful or Christological, I guess, is going to happen when he says he takes them off by themselves. It is shorthand that there's going to be a Christological event. And here we have a theophany. We have all the ingredients: a cloud, a mountain, the building of tents and dazzling white garments and the voice of God. And so Moses and Elijah appear, and they represent the law and the prophets, and Jesus shows himself to be the fulfillment of both of them. And the voice that is heard recalls the baptism moment in chapter 1, verse 11 of Mark, and listen to him is the command. And when we see that Peter wants to pitch tents, this is in reference to the Feast of Sukkoth, because they believe that the Feast of Sukkoth it took on a meaning of messianic importance. And so Peter is sort of acknowledging that this moment of the Transfiguration is the coming of the Messiah. So you see here the high mountain, apart by themselves, dazzling white, let us make tents. From the cloud came a voice. So all the fulfillments of this theophany are there. Please pray for peace in Ukraine and in the Holy Land. And if you think this is helpful to someone, please pass it on. Thank you very much.